Welcome to the Mike and Alison After Hours podcast with your hosts, Mike Sheila and Alison Haas, talking business with real business owners in the Mid-Atlantic region. Today's episode is sponsored by Advantage Industries. When you need business technology, get Advantage Industries to protect and promote your business. To learn more, go to www.getadvantage.com and schedule your first meeting to see if you qualify for a free network scan.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Mike and Alison After Hours. I am your host, Mike Sheila, and with me today is my always awesome and always on point co-host, Alison Haas. Alison, how are you?
I'm wonderful. Post-Thanksgiving, Starbucks in hand. It's cold as you know what outside. It's perfect.
Yeah. Alison and I were having a little bit of a fitful moment right before the show started. The joys of parenthood. That's all I'll put on it there for me, and the joys of not being able to find my cell phone. Anyway,
it wasn't my technology for once. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, exactly.
It's always me.
And we finally got Alison straightened out. If you're watching this episode, you probably noticed that the image is a lot sharper, that she sounds a lot better. We did some creative upgrades since the last episode, and super happy about that. But today's episode, we are talking to Christopher Schafer, who is the owner and founder of Christopher Schafer Clothiers. And for those of you that don't know him, a tremendous man in the Baltimore community, a serial entrepreneur, a business owner. We're going to get into all that when Christopher joins us later in the show, but I've had the opportunity to work with him a few times, and just what a tremendous man, what a tremendous organization. And I'll let him get into all the wonderful things that make up his organization. But before we do that, Alison and I like to have a little friendly banter at the beginning of each week's show. And I am an IT salesperson. Alison is an HR salesperson. And we talk a lot about sales. And we talk a lot about what it takes to be a business owner here, particularly in the Mid-Atlantic community. There are certain things that across the board apply to being a business owner, but there are nice wrinkles to each marketplace, right? There's a saying in Baltimore that when someone asks you, where did you go to school? They're not asking about college.
No, they are not.
They're asking about what high school you went to. And Baltimore's literally the only place in the United States that I'm aware of that's what they mean.
That is so true. I forgot.
So there are little interesting wrinkles. And in Washington, D.C., particularly when pre-COVID, when people were driving places, a contact in DC didn't get upset if you were late because you couldn't find a parking spot.
Right.
You could get to your appointment an hour early and still not find a parking spot at the time of the meeting.
Do not miss that right now. That's for sure.
So there are interesting wrinkles, but one of the things that Alison and I thought it would be useful to discuss is hiring a salesperson, and the how and the when, the why. And I'll kick this off, Alison, by saying what prompted this for me was when I was hired at Advantage, that was off of a recommendation from an advisor that our president works with. And he said, you're ready to hire a salesperson. And I know a lot of small business owners don't have an advisor, and they're not sure when to do that. And they're not sure how to pay them. And this came up because Alison was talking to me about her end of the year incentives. And she said, I only need to find X amount of customers. I said, it's customers, not revenue. And so there's all these factors that go into how salespeople get compensated. And I've seen several plans over the years, and it can sometimes be industry specific, right? So people that exclusively sell insurance, they almost never have a base salary.
Right.
They get commission, they get residual commissions, and that builds up over time. So the first year or 2 years that you're doing that business are probably very lean, but established insurance sales professionals that have been at it for 10 or more years, they can literally make a good living without having to go out and find a whole lot of new prospects. They have to maintain, basically.
Right.
So my plan, the one that I work on, I think is pretty simple. It's pretty traditional in that I have a base salary, but when I sell something, I get a chunk of that.
Mm.
And that's how I'm commissioned. And I've seen that many places.
A chunk up front.
Yeah, it's a one-time pop, and that's pretty much it.
Got it.
But yours, I thought, was interesting because you have several components. So, without giving away all the secret sauce, talk a little bit about what the compensation plan looks like for you.
Yeah, no, I love it. And it's a unique model that I am grateful for this year, especially. So we have a base salary that is unchanging. So we start, and it's pretty fair, I have to say. Now, fair for me, I'm a single woman, right? So if I had 4 kids, I might say not so much. But as a single woman, a very fair base salary that remains intact. We have a small allowance every month for, gas. It used to be cell phones, but now they compensate that differently. Different business operative things, LinkedIn subscriptions. And then we have the opportunity to earn both upfront commissions when we close a deal. So we get part of a startup fee. And that number ranges depending on the size of the deal, of course, right? So we get a part of that. And then we also get paid residually. So as we build our book of business, we build our residual base. And the way we get compensated is through payroll runs. So every time, once the client runs a payroll with us, that's when I get paid. So after signing doesn't matter, none of that. They actually have to go through a payroll. Then I get paid my upfront commission, and then the residuals kick in. And so and it's based on number of employees. So the more employees I have on my payrolls, the more money I make. So the size of the deal and the growth over time affects me residually. And then obviously incentivizes me to do a good job and continue doing a good job, not just, hey, great, I got you to sign and I'm now out of your life forever. So I'm genuinely a good person, right? If you call me, I'm going to answer. And if you ask me a question, if I can't answer it, I'm going to figure out how to get you an answer. But I am also compensated in a way that's really fair so that I do stay up to snuff with you and your business.
Yeah, and you touched on several interesting things there because I think most people understand straight commission. Mm-hmm. There's some variances to it, but I think most people understand that. You're not getting any salary, right, but you're getting a chunk of every sale. And then there's draw against commission. So they'll give you every 2 weeks, you're getting something no matter what. And if your commissions don't exceed that, well, they're always going to pay you that, but the next time your commissions do exceed it, it's going to go to backfill that draw. So that's another way that salespeople are compensated. And I was with a company a few years ago that did something they referred to as TBR, total billed revenue.
Interesting.
So let's say I was responsible for 30 accounts. Those 30 accounts in general bill $100,000 a month. And I'm just making up numbers. The way that I was judged was if it's $100,000 this month and my quota is $5,000 monthly, the next month, the total billed revenue should be 105. And then the month after that, it should be 110. And then so on and so forth. So there was an interesting challenge to that because I could have a really great month with new sales, but if one of my existing customers went away, maybe my net number didn't go up as much. And as a result, I didn't make as much commission.
Okay.
And then you talked about you don't get paid until that payroll runs.
Right.
So I've seen several variances of that. I've seen companies that the month you sign the deal, you get paid.
Yep.
I've seen ones, like you said, don't get paid until it's installed or active, however you want to term that. And I've seen 50-50s. And 50-50s are much more common in equipment-based businesses. Right. You sell a $10,000 copier, for example, or a $20,000 server. or something like that. You get half of the commission when it's sold, and then you get the other half of the commission when that product is installed or delivered to the customer.
Side note, are copiers 10 grand sometimes?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh my God.
Well,
Sorry.
But think about it this way. Think about a printing company.
Yeah.
What they're
yeah.
technically using is a really big copier.
Fair. Yes.
Now it's
Yes.
not quite that simple, but yeah. Or
Yeah.
think about an office that has 200 employees.
Right. Yep.
And they probably have multiple machines that can handle high volume. Again, that's less necessary nowadays since most companies have largely gone digital. But you know, that just speaks to the diversity of compensation. And
Yeah.
the one thing that I think most small business owners are unfamiliar with is I hire a salesperson and then what?
Mm.
I think most sales professionals will tell you that outside of a little bit of good luck, it generally takes at minimum 6 months and probably closer to a year for that sales professional to consistently deliver their monthly expectation or their quarterly expectation.
Yeah. And in my industry, 2 to 3 years.
Yeah. And you know, I've been in the interview chair, and I've had people say to me, "Well, we're looking for a sales rep that can hit the ground running." Okay. Stop saying that. I am, as I have said in multiple episodes before, I'm a LinkedIn nerd. I have close to 6,000 connections on LinkedIn, and 2/3 of them are here in the Baltimore, DC metro area. And a third of those are what I would call decision makers. So let's conversationally say that I have in my Rolodex about 2,000 decision makers. You are a fool to think that I can convert even 5% of those in the first 90 days.
Oh, yeah.
Because I am new to the company. Why? They may like me,
Right.
but they don't know my company.
Right.
And along with that, the timing is not guaranteed to be right.
Yep.
I mean, you and I have talked about that on several occasions, that you talk to a client and the answer is no. And the answer is no because it's really not now.
Yeah. Not yet. Yep.
Not yet.
Well, and it also depends on the product you're selling, right? The life cycle and the sales cycle. You know, you think of transactional sales like cars, and different equipment pieces, and then you think of the HR space, which is a very complicated, financially delicate thing, right? It's a service and a platform, so it's not a product per se, and that takes time to sell, right? From the first meeting, don't even count the time it takes to get that first meeting. So yeah, expectations, hit the ground running. Well, what does that mean? That means you have a willing, resilient, patient but tenacious person that's willing to get beat up, right, day in and day out, and told no way more than yes. And for me, it's I either get a job offer or I'm told to pound sand for the rest of my life, right? It's like one or the other. And so yeah, I agree with you. Get rid of that statement because it's not fair. And that expectation is
unrealistic,
inappropriate.
and you're
Yeah,
only going to disappoint yourself.
exactly.
And you touched on two things there that I want you to spin a little bit more. Your industry and my industry are what I refer to as intimate, meaning
Yes.
that when the customer buys from you, they are trusting you with a core piece of what makes their company run.
Exactly.
In your case, not you personally, but social security numbers, home addresses, are they married? Are they divorced? How many kids do they have? How many houses? I mean, a lot about their employees. You don't just hand that over.
No.
Regardless of the company or the brand or anything. You don't just hand that over.
Yeah.
And IT is very similar. I am literally taking all the data that makes your business run and saying, I'm going to protect it. I'm going to care for it for you. That is not an easy decision. It is not a simple decision. And that takes building up trust. It takes time.
Yep.
And I just think most, and I feel sympathetic for business owners because, and you can speak to this because I'm sure it comes up in HR conversations. The investment you make to hire a person, even with, let's just say you're not paying them any salary. Let's go with the straight commission model just for a moment. The company makes a significant investment in benefits, training. They're probably giving you a computer. There's a long, and every business is a little different in that regard, but there's a long list of things that go into bringing on an employee. And we've all, I think you and I have talked about this. We've met people who are like, how do you still have a job? And I think a lot of that comes from the owner has said, I've made such an investment in this person. I've got to try a little harder. I've got to see if I can get them to function at the way or the level that I want them to function. So yeah, business owners, you have my sympathy. I would first strongly encourage you to work with a business coach. Somebody that has templated this and done this at multiple other businesses, which is what our president has done. In addition to that, one of the things that our president has done is he's in a peer group. So he's in a group.
I love that.
That I think is 20 other IT company owners across the United States. So yeah, that's our competition, but we really don't compete because we're very regional in how we do business. And that has been a tremendous value to him. In fact, we're going to hire someone in the next couple of weeks because one of his partners up in New England said, hey, I'm losing one of my field technicians. His wife got a job offer in Washington, D.C., so they're moving to your area. If you're looking to hire, you should hire this guy.
Great.
So he's bringing us a fantastic new field technician. And that's just one of the many values that a business owner, particularly a small business owner, can get from a peer group. I've probably said this on another show, but I was having a sales conversation with our president, Keith, one day, and he asked me something that I thought was very elementary, very basic, very fundamental to sales. And I explained it, and he said to me, you're the first salesperson I've ever had. I've always worked for myself. I've never worked in a large company. So those things that are obvious to you, Mike, are not obvious to me.
And I think that's a key point too. The business owner is always the first and best and most passionate salesperson. So it gets really difficult to trust releasing some of the responsibility and taking the risk that you're going to hire someone that's going to care not as much as you, because that would not be possible as the founder.
They care different.
But yeah, it's a different kind of care, right? They care about the results and the outcome and taking care of themselves. And if you've shown them value and value that they bring to the organization, they'll probably care more, right? And given them the vision for the future with the organization. But yeah, and I love that about a peer group too. It removes some of the isolation of being an entrepreneur and a business leader. It can be, a very isolating, lonely seat to fill, because it's all on you. No matter if you have 10 employees, 70 employees, 700 employees, at the end of the day, when you're sitting at the throne, so to speak, it can be very isolating. And to have people around you that can share in that isolation breaks it down and then makes it more digestible and have perspective from an unbiased, unattached place, right? Because when you're involved, you're emotionally invested. So you can't always see what's working and what's not. and to relinquish control from that close of a place can be difficult. So I love those nuggets.
Yeah, and you touched on a subject that you and I are both big fans of, which is emotional intelligence.
Yes.
We all have blind spots in how we see the world. The way that you see the world is different than the way that I see the world because one, I'm a 48-year-old man married with 2 children, and I've been in sales my entire life. And you are not that.
I am not.
You're basically the opposite of that.
35-year-old single female living large.
And in addition to being in sales, you have been a business owner.
Mm-hmm.
You've done all kinds of exciting stuff. You've
Yep.
been a fitness model.
Yep.
You want to have some fun, folks? Google Alison.
Oh my
But
God.
you're also an author.
Yes.
And so the fabric that weaves our lives covers us very well in some spots and leaves us bare and exposed in others. And we often don't know that. And I think most business owners, that's the thing that holds them back more than anything else. Because you, as a business owner, you have to be confident, right?
Yep. And fake it if you're not.
And fake it if you're not.
Yep.
But along with that, it's hard to say, I don't know how to do this.
Yeah. Yeah. Or I don't know what's wrong or where it went wrong, but it's not working. And I think I have something to do with that. Or I don't know if I do, right? And removing the sense of like fault and blame, right? Like mistakes are guaranteed. It's fail faster, right? You're gonna if you're trying to get somewhere, just fail faster, fail more, and accumulate experience that aid you in the next opportunity to do it differently or to do it better. And yeah, and I think too, salespeople we're a rare breed, right? I mean, there's a certain genotype personality that is a salesperson, right? And depending on the level of sales and the product, if you will, that you're selling, comes different business acumen and how to, and a huge resilience factor. I have post-it notes all over the bottom of my second monitor because it's so mental, right? Sales is very emotional and mental because you do hear no a lot more than you hear yes.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter what you're selling, right? Like getting rid of that old junky laptop that I just sold on Facebook Marketplace was almost as exciting as working for my day job. The payoff's a little bit differently, but it's just like I just have something inside of me that loves that reward and the recognition. But, I'm also in a place in my life where I genuinely appreciate the other side of the table and want to be able to impact them and their business and their family. And I so appreciate this podcast. Here I go with the emotional stuff, right? It's bound to happen at some point because it reminds me to keep perspective. Especially with this year and the time of the year that it is, and that I am selling something that genuinely affects every part of the business, every person in the business, and the person's family. We could say that loosely about, if I sell you a copy or whatever, it's going to make your life easier. You're going to get home sooner to dinner or whatever. But, like I'm touching payroll, benefits,
Yeah.
HR, training and development. So I really am touching every part of everybody's life in that organization. So to keep that in mind, it's not just I present, think about it for the next 2 hours or on the spot and sign here. Like it's not that kind of investment. So thank you, Mike, for always bringing me perspective too on what it is that we're doing here and being willing to play the long game. And that goes back to compensation too. Can you compensate in a way that is fair for you, right, as the organization's leader, but also the salesperson so that they can figure it out and get going, right? And I think too this year especially, I've made more money this year but sold less just because of the way my compensation is set up. And
Sure.
I'm so
I've
grateful.
had like that too, absolutely.
Yeah, and I'm so grateful because it allows me to continue going instead of starting to panic and think, oh, I can't make it here, I can't do it, I can't hang in there long enough to see it through.
Yeah, and Allison, you and I have talked a little bit about this on previous episodes where one of the reasons we started this show was because there's a lot of bad salespeople out there. And we wanted to showcase to the world that, hey, we're not bad salespeople. We care. But we've actually
One called me yesterday, just saying. And I hung up on him. I'm not even going to lie. So thank you, business owners, for hanging up on me. I do it too.
and I think that I've probably worked with thousands of different salespeople in my 20 plus year career now. And the overwhelming majority of them put no effort into getting better. I remember when I was in my late 20s and I had my first real sales job, and it was read a sales book. Why would I do that? I know what I'm doing. And I was interviewing for a job several years ago, and I said to the guy that I was interviewing me would have been my sales manager. And I said to him, yeah, the last couple of years, I put a lot of work into myself, making myself a better person, a better sales professional, a better husband, a better father. And I said, at that point, I think I had said, I've read over 100 books in the last 2 years. I said, talk to me about what you've done to develop yourself to be a better sales leader. And he was greatly offended by that. And he went on this tear about, I get better because I'm in the field working with my people. And
jeez.
Okay, that's probably a valid piece of the process. But the fact that you were offended by that tells me that you have not worked on your blind spots and who you are.
Yeah, you haven't worked on yourself. Personal development, right? Professional development, personal development. That's huge. If you can't get out of your own way, how do you think other people are going to join forces with you and want to work harder for you?
Yeah. So, ladies and gentlemen, our guest, Christopher Schafer, is here. It's my favorite part of the show. Let's let him in. Hello, Christopher Schafer. Please take yourself off of mute.
There we go.
Good.
Hello, sir. Good morning.
Hey.
Looking dapper as hell, sir, and I would have expected nothing less.
I second that. Well done.
So, Christopher, I'm going to give our audience a little bit of background on you real quick.
Okay.
I took a look at your LinkedIn profile. Again, LinkedIn nerd. And Chris has a great write-up. Christopher Schafer wants you to look your best for every one of life's greatest occasions. He takes pride in his work and feels that every garment that he creates is a direct representation of himself. Christopher makes sure that all the details are correct and that you get the best fit possible. He will take the time with you to design the best clothing that you have ever owned. This old work ethic is not going unnoticed. He's been voted by Baltimore's best tailor in the city paper, Baltimore Magazine, fashion awards, time and time and time again. So, Christopher, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's good to be here this morning.
And on a personal note, Christopher and I got to start working together probably about 5 years ago. The audience knows by now I have a son with autism, and I'm very active in the nonprofit community. And Christopher and I have worked on a couple of different fashion shows together, where he basically takes charge and makes sure that everybody looks on point, that they just look their absolute best. And I love that piece about you. So, Christopher, we're going to get into 2 segments today. I'm going to take you through the who, what, where, when, why, how piece. Allison's going to talk to you a bit about leadership. But we're noticing a trend. Allison and I, we've done a bunch of these episodes now, and it seems that whenever we interview a business leader, that they are involved in the community. They believe strongly in giving back and being sharing their success, I guess is the easiest way to put it. So why don't you start with your who? Who is Christopher Schafer, and who's Christopher Schafer Clothiers?
Well, so me personally is that I'm a husband, I'm a father, I'm an entrepreneur, philanthropist, drummer, skateboarder, runner,
You drive an awesome.
That I like doing. I find that there's just not enough time to do all the things.
Yeah, and for our audience, tell them about that super slick muscle car that you drive.
Yeah, I have a '68 Camaro that has a
hell yeah.
454 in it. It's
Gorgeous.
that was a dream that was something I dreamed about for a long time, and it actually came to fruition. It's been 5 years now.
Beautiful.
Years or so. Yeah, it's great. I mean, it's like when when you drive that thing, it's so much power, and it's like when I see like kids and stuff, and they're like staring at it, and then I rev the motor really loud and powerful, and they're smiling, and I'm like, my wife hates it though. My wife thinks it's a thing. I think it's great. So, but I love driving that thing. It's definitely a super cool car, and I've never had anything that's been that powerful before. But it's fun to drive for sure. It's it's fun to drive.
Yeah, Chris, I just have to say I'm a former car salesperson and I'm a huge car geek. I have an SRT8, the Grand Cherokee, so I have some muscle under the hood as well. And I had a lineup of pretty sexy beasts in my past. My boyfriend doesn't care, thinks I'm financially irresponsible at times, but I'm very happy when I get in there and I hear the engine. So much appreciated.
Yeah, we couldn't do this show without talking about the ride, Christopher. So thank you. So
perfect.
Give people a sense of
with the 8-cylinder in it. That I remember I was behind one of them once, and I was like, the guy took off. Oh, wow! I was like, and then I have a client who has one, and he was telling me, he's like, they're fast.
Yeah.
They sound it's just they look good too. It's like
right. You can't tell why it looks different because it's very much a Jeep, but you're like, there's something different with the lines, and oh yeah, it's special. I don't the wrong car in the parking lot anymore. I can tell you that much.
Cool. That's I like those. They look really cool. They look
Thank
really
you.
Cool.
Gas mileage, not so much, but whatever. We're not, but I'm virtual now, so it's fine. Whatever.
I was this morning. I was like, God, people that are watching the news, and then they always do the traffic, and I'm like, why are we doing that? Why are we doing the traffic? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, the beauty of it is like there's no traffic anymore, really.
Right.
So it definitely changed things, but it looks like gas prices are going back up too.
Oh yeah, I got that this morning.
Season. Yeah.
It was 30 cents more. I'm like, seriously?
And
whatever.
I think that's usually when they start doing that. But yeah, it's been nice not driving as much. You're driving when you want to, when you're not. So
right.
Yeah. So anyway, sorry.
Sorry.
No. That's cool. We want to know the person as well. Now, with a name like Christopher Schafer Clothiers, people probably think what you do is a little self-evident. But why don't you tell us what Christopher Schafer Clothiers is?
Well, I can tell you that we just hit 10 years of being in business.
Congratulations.
Right? Thank you. So, in the beginning, it was just me. And so I figured, name it after myself. And it was pretty much, pretty straightforward as far as that. It is funny too, because like growing up, I never wanted to be called Christopher. That meant I was in trouble. So
yep.
That's why I'm Mike and not Michael. Agreed.
So that's the thing. But it's like, as I matured, which took a while, is that I realized I was like, I like the ring of it, and I started off by myself, and then it was, and then I had some people that worked with me over the years, and then my oldest son came to work with me like 7 years ago, and it really started to click. The father-son thing, a lot of people talk about starting a business, and it's like the first year, I celebrated every year,
yeah.
Just making it another year was such a big deal. Yeah, and the statistics will freak you out. Basically, it's like, oh, half of them or whatever the number is fail in the first year, and even by the third year. And I didn't really feel like I could. By the third year, I started to take a little bit of a breath. But it's like year 10, and we can't help but to take a breath because of what's happening right But so the business changed from where I think I saw it sort of shift from a lifestyle business to a legacy business. And I wasn't really, and my whole mind shift kind of changed, by being able to go and have a family business. My father always wanted, my parents had 5 boys, and they always wanted us to have a family business together. And some of my brothers have ended up working together. I have 2 brothers that are plumbers, and they've worked together before. Now they have their own companies and everything like that. But it was, it just never really was like the right deal for us all to kind of work together on something. And now I understand why they wanted that so much, because it's great having that. But what ended up happening was that the business started off as just me, and then it sort of started to shift where it became its own label and entity, and then people would talk about like wearing a Christopher Schafer, which was kind of weird to me.
Yeah, that's what a defining moment.
Nice.
I hear that, and I would, when I'd go to events or something, and I could see a lot of people in the room. I could spot my work in a room across the room and everything, and it just sort of everything started to change, and I really liked it. I liked the way that it was going, and I realized that I could really be building the foundation of something that could live beyond me, and that was really exciting. And so where we are right now is that we have Baltimore East Coast is our headquarters, and we work out of Baltimore. But we see people that are all around the Mid-Atlantic and New York and everything, and then and now my son has been in Los Angeles for 2.5 years, and we opened up a shop out there, and so he's really swinging for the fences out there, really going for it, and he's been bringing some new ideas to the table of like this West Coast kind of fashion that's a little bit more laid back but still dressed up, and that kind of ties into what's happening with the times right now. So there's this kind of change going on, and I've got 2 younger guys that so it's like Seth is in California, and Casey is here with me, and I think that I'm giving these younger guys some room to really spread their wings a bit, because I think as a teacher and a mentor, you should do that when you feel that someone is in a good enough spot and that they could really bring something to the table, and it gives them a chance to have some real buy-in to what's going on. You give them some room, and it's like I'm in the fashion business, so bringing the youthful part into what's going on, and I've become more of like the elder statesman, which I don't mind. You know what I mean? It's like I'm like their combined age. You know what I mean? So just thought about it. I was like, oh my God, wow. But
so definitely Christopher.
Yes. It's like it's funny because I feel like I kind of fought it for a long time, and then I was like, you know what, this actually like it it fits me, it suits me. The wisdom part, it's like I always knew I was a late bloomer. It just kind of took me a while to kind of come around, because I spent a lot of time. I've been a musician all my life, and you can really kind of be a screwball for a long time. And I did that. And I was like, okay, now I kind of really like this other part, which is the maturing and being a gentleman, and kind of like just so it's working out really well. And I'm it's like I dare I say I'm happy, because I feel like I'm waiting for like the sky's gonna fall or something.
Yeah, never admit happiness. That is your doom, right?
It is so you're supposed to like work to be able to say that, and then when you say it, you're like, oh my God.
Yep.
But,
why clothing? Why fashion? I mean, musicians always have an offbeat sense of style. They tend to blaze a trail, right? I mean, think about people like Madonna and Prince and Michael Jackson. When you think about them, immediately after their music, you think about their fashion.
Right.
That seems to be how they cut their it's just, so why fashion?
Well, it's always been a part of my life, one way or the other, except for when I think about like my younger years, it was all like skateboarding and punk rock kind of was the style of everything, which which is still a huge part of, I was just skateboarding yesterday. So
I love it.
It's great. So, and I love the raw energy of all of that. And so I kind of take that, and I think that when you can fuse that together with fine menswear, but you have to, it has to be genuine. It's like a lot of places will try and they'll try and, oh, skateboarding's cool, let's put someone on a skateboard for something. You know what I mean? It's like, that's not like, with us, we've had pros skateboarding in our suits. You know what I mean? And then you see that stuff and you're like, whoa. And and it's like, I tell the guys, I'm like, look, if you wipe out, you wipe out. And, that's just the way it's going to, they're like, I'm worried about everything. Just go for it. Do your thing. And so, I think it had kind of like elevated over all the years. When I really look back at it, like my first job was in like fifth grade. I had a paper route, and it essentially was to go and like buy my own clothing because I have three older brothers and I was getting hand-me-downs from them. And I started really kind of like developing my own style. And my parents were like, we're going to buy you like the necessities. You want over and above, that's on you. And that really kind of taught me a lot. And I mean, probably overcompensated from the handy starting my bar conversation. But so that's kind of where it started from, was there. And even when I was playing music a lot, there was a point when I was like, I was making stage clothing, and we were like, so it was like kind of, it all sort of evolved. But it wasn't until I got married and moved to London was when I was headhunted to learn how to design clothes, and it was like, it was removing me from Baltimore, getting me in a new city with, everywhere you look was all new, places where I'd never been before, and so it changed my mindset of like, and I wasn't trying to be an American in Europe, trying to make Europe like America. I was I really respected the history that was there, and I think that London is epicenter for men's fashion. So it was like the right place, the right time, the right mindset, and really being willing to learn, and I had really good teachers. And I think that if you're a good teacher, if you're a good student and you have a good teacher, the teacher then teaches you more because you're actually absorbing and using the knowledge that they're giving you. So it kind of like evolved from that, but it's even at a point where it's like, music is still a huge part of what I do. I have a stage at my studio, and I still play drums, and we have some really great parties when we can have them. And because I love having big gatherings with a lot of people, and we have a lot of a very eclectic client base and friends, and you get everybody in the room together, and it just makes for really interesting events and all. But everything's on just a waiting period till that's done.
Did you do a send off for Seth in Mount Vernon a couple years ago, a masquerade? Yes, I was there. That was awesome.
Thank you.
It was so fun.
Yeah, that was a big one. That was we so I've been looking back on it because it was 6 months prior to that was our 7-year anniversary, and we rented a World War II ship and had a 007 theme party.
Wow,
so cool.
And it was, and so that was the 7-year. I got a tour of the ship and got to go like way up high in the ship and got to look down on all of these people on the deck. And we had this guy doing hand-rolled cigars. The cigar smoke is puffing up, and this great jazz band is playing. And I just realized, I was like, this is a new chapter. This is a new chapter right now. And then it was 6 months later that when Seth was leaving for California, that it was like, let's have another big party. And we did it at the Engineers Club. And
yep. Beautiful.
He said, let's do a masquerade ball. And I was like, okay. And it was, it was legit. I mean, people really, they dressed up. They,
yep.
A majority of, I feel like 90-something% wore masks. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So,
yep.
And that was a great party. I think it was a really fun time. And now you look back on it, you're like, geez, I wish we could do stuff like that right now. But so it's a bit of a holding pattern for that. We were supposed to have our 10-year anniversary. It was going to be in October, and we postponed that. We're hoping we can do it May 1st is supposed to be the new date, and then he would have his 3-year anniversary would be the end of April. But we, it's like you got to wait.
You don't know, yeah.
Nobody knows, so it's like
yep.
So
Well, I'm cautiously optimistic. I think by May we should be back on the train enough that, and I'll be the first one to buy a ticket to that. That's awesome. So
it would be nice.
Christopher, I heard two things that you said, and I'm going to use those as my parting thoughts before I hand this over to Alison. You mentioned authenticity and perspective, and my God, we hear that every single interview, it seems now, Alison. Authenticity and perspective, and that's what makes successful business owners. So, before Alison does her thing, if somebody wanted to contact you to get one of your super dapper outfits, I know you're pretty strong on social media, but what's the best ways to get in touch with Christopher Schafer Clothiers?
It's probably just going through the website is pretty comprehensive, and then it kind of branches off to whatever social media or however you want to reach us, phone numbers, emails, and everything there. But it's ChristopherSchafer.com is the website.
And I will make sure that's in the show notes for all of our listening audience.
Kind of gives you a good overview of East and West Coast and where we are right now, and we try and stay on top of that stuff pretty good.
Indeed. Alison, take it away.
Happily, I have to say I'm jealous that I'm not a gentleman that can wear a dapper suit.
I used to clothes when I started, and I just really found we found our lane. It works.
Yeah. Well, and that's a lane, and then so many people I think feel like they have to keep expanding, but like you just keep getting better in your lane. So I think that's awesome.
This time is tricky right now. A lot of people are spreading out all over the place and scattered. And it's tough to see. It's like I'm in a part of town where there's some of the best restaurants around, and there's more restaurants that are closing that are nearby me. It's tough to see. You know what I mean? And so and of course they've tried. They're gathering places, and and then but all of a sudden you're trying to sort of scatter to figure it all out, and I'll kind of take the approach where I'm like, I just want to hold tight and stay in the lane. We're introducing a little bit of bomber jackets and some stuff like that.
Cool.
Like short, but they're all still within using nice fabric, and they're kind of we're still, like I said, we're not going a million miles out from where we go, because that's usually when you panic, and when you panic, you're best choices.
Yeah. So how has this year affected you all?
I'm waiting for my P&L to be sent over, but I mean, it's like it's definitely, we're down for sure. But I've had to take the approach personally where I've been granted a lot of time, and so like a lot of life is time versus money. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, been around for long enough, you've usually had more of one than the other at some point.
Sure.
Spot where it's like, how much do I need? Because if you're just chasing the dollar, you'll never be happy. You know what I mean? So, and you also just can't not work. You know what I mean? So it's like you got to find the sweet spot that's in there. And so, it's crazy to think that we're getting ready to, we're 2 weeks away from being 9 months into this. You know?
Yeah, I know. Yep.
A child could be born in that much time. That's
Yes, and they are. Yep.
So that's pretty crazy to think about, but having the kind of time that we've been given during all this, and it's easier than anything, and like when you see people that are doctors and everything, and they're so worn out, I feel horrible for them. We were in a situation where we had to close for a couple months at first, and then it was like, and then we're in Baltimore City, and Baltimore City's kind of handle things a little bit differently with it's the same thing. It's like, can you be open? Can you not be open? What percentage are you open? And really all that it comes down to is, do people feel comfortable with coming to see you or not?
Yep.
You know what I mean? So,
Yep.
it's been a real transitional time, of course, as it is for most people.
Absolutely. I love what you said about not chasing the dollar, right? I mean, there's certainly an aspect of money involved in being a business owner and working, right? That's why ultimately we do work. But if that's your only end goal, and like Mike already said, all I'm feeling from you is authenticity. And I think that that is in your label, that's in your brand, right? And then that makes people want to do business with you. I won't name drop, but I briefly hung out with somebody that I believe was in one of your badass commercials. He's a dog trainer, and it was a few years ago, and it was so cool. But like, just the authenticity, just it reeks, right? It's amazing, amazing. So yeah, he's good. Carter's good. Yeah, he does a great job. I was always mesmerized by that.
He's a good guy to have on here.
Yeah. Oh, that's true. Actually, thank you for that.
Show notes.
Show notes. And I'm writing it down too for after. So, Christopher, we've heard a lot about getting started and how that came to be. What do you think makes a great team?
Well, I think it's knowing your strengths, knowing your weaknesses, and how do you work off of each other, right? Have some, understanding what someone's good at and what you're not good at, and right now we have, one of the smartest things I did was hire an accountant, years ago. So it's like that's not my favorite thing. So it's like I understand, what it takes. But it's like when you get into all IRS paperwork and everything like that, it just doesn't do it. You know what I mean?
Can't imagine why.
Can do it. I understand math, but I'm like, I just don't.
I don't want to.
It really comes back to the same thing of what's the highest and best use of your time.
Yes.
Right? So and that's just the way that goes. So, having that. But I also feel like when someone is working with me and being on my team, I'm like, look, part of this is I can't stop in the middle of what I'm doing to go and say, you need to write notes on this and there's going to be a quiz later. It's more of the process is that if you're around and you're absorbing what's going on and you're seeing the way it works, and then usually at the end of the day, we'll either sit down and have dinner or be talking and say, what did you learn today? Today, you know what I mean? So that's kind of that stuff I think is important. But the team that I have right now is like I'm really happy, and having younger guys and they keep you on your toes and they want to kind of mess with you, and then you throw it back at them, and it's like it's good, it's solid, and I have and I also have had some really powerful women on the team, and I have one right now who's helping us with all of our marketing and everything too, and she runs business and it works out really well. So I think the team is really important. I'm trying to teach my younger kids about that stuff all the time, but the buddy system and all of that stuff.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Because that stuff, so with being a musician for so long, I know a lot of very talented musicians, but they can't really work with other people.
Right.
Yep.
It's like, oh, you might be so sick of a guitarist, but you don't show up for practice. And, and I'm like, that doesn't work for me. You know what I mean? And I'm like, so I've learned over the years of like, what am I willing to accept? What I'm not willing to accept? What am I looking for? And a lot of times it's like, you do the old upfront contract. Like, this is what I want. And it's like, are we cool with that? And okay, good. Then we can have the possibility of moving on with stuff. But that's
Christopher, I read this in a book a few years ago, and I think you just encapsulated it. If it's not, hell no. And I think that's what you just shared with us, and I think that really gets leadership in. Yeah. And true to your punk rock roots, Christopher, this show has not gone to script, but it was perfect, phenomenal. This has been a lot of fun. It's good for us to go off page from time to time. Want to thank you so much for being on the show. And again, we could have you back on again because we just got to scratch the surface. Those that are listening that know Christopher, you know what he's capable of. You've seen his work. Those of you that are just getting a taste of him, I strongly encourage you to visit his showroom, go to his website, reach out to him about his nonprofit work. Again, we didn't get to talk about Sharp Dressed Man. I mean, I know you have touched so many organizations that I have been involved with over the years, and I just want to take a moment and say thank you so much for being on the show and for doing what you do. Alison, parting thought before we wrap?
No, this was super fun, Christopher. And I think the unscripted back and forth conversation is genuine. So I loved it. Thank you.
We
It was
didn't
great
need
to
the
meet you.
script because he knew what he was
No.
going to say.
Yeah, exactly. No, this was great. Thank you. It was fun.
Well, everyone, thank you for listening to the latest episode of Mike and Alison After Hours. Awesome guest, Christopher Schafer, and we will be back with another awesome business owner here in the Baltimore, D.C. market for you soon. And remember, people helping people, it's powerful stuff.
Thank you for joining Mike and Alison After Hours. Tune in next time for another great business owner sharing valuable industry ideas. Want to be a guest on our show? Contact us at answers@getadvantage.com.